Goal responsibility.
So the prior slide and this slide, actually, so that you can leave it on this slide. So there's about almost $29 million that are come through for IDA. That's federally funded. So what's at risk potentially? You know, we don't have a real clear marker of what's going to happen. But if any funds stop, you would see a reduction in those numbers, which means a reduction in services for kids. It is a straight line for it because it's all formula based. So what would I say for your district? What would I be concerned about, and Chester County in general? So you'll see here there's about $136 million. We're already up to almost $126 million in grants. Those are typically flow through from federal government to state and comes down. I'll use Head Start as an example, or early intervention. We're the provider of early intervention in Chester County. It has grown by over 1,000 students in 4 years. The students that enter that program, they have about a 50% attrition rate. Those are students that are receiving speech services, like my son received speech when he was younger. You would go through the IU, you'd get those services, and typically they exit in a timely fashion with the intervention. If those funds would stop, what that would mean, and even if it's partial, right now it's very difficult to serve all the students, but with 1,000, figure you have an extra 500 students if we had attrition. We didn't have those services. That means they're coming to you in kindergarten with very high needs, which means your budget will be impacted by having to serve kids in kindergarten with higher needs with no interventions. So that's a hypothetical, Mr. Norris. We're not sure what that would look like, but that's one that would give, if I was sitting as superintendent, I would sit there and go, with the large number of kids that are going to need services, what's going to end up happening is they come to us in kindergarten, and how are we going to be able to do all that without any additional funding, any additional space? Because, you think about all the space we're creating, it could have that kind of impact. That's just one area. We're in a wait and see. What we hear is that they're probably going to turn into block grants, where they might turn it into that, which still may not be great for school districts because it's just a different hurdle to go through, and we don't know what it may look like. So we're wait and see. We're in contact with our Pennsylvania leadership, because here's the second part of it. If the federal government doesn't pick up, then the state government is going to be forced to try to do something. And just speaking as a taxpayer, that means our taxes go up. That's really until they bleed this. They have about $17 billion in the state coffers, which they don't think are going to last very long. So wait and see. Well, hopefully it stays pretty strong. Does that help, Mr. Norris?
Thanks, Dr. Fury. I'm going to walk through a couple slides on each of the major budget areas of the intermediate unit. The first is the core budget, and think about that as sort of like the administrative backbone of the organization. You could see the division that this budget supports, but even within there are services that school districts can avail themselves to, hiring consortiums, collaborative purchasing, some internet tools, high-speed internet discounts, those type of things. Next year's budget is proposed to be about $41.3 million for the core budget. However, the school district's direct contribution, all school districts in Chester County, is a little over $600,000. And for your school district, it's formula-based, based on primarily on enrollment. It's going to be about $14,000 next year. So our funding streams from other sources, indirect costs that we get from grants, and other lines of business obviously subsidize this budget to a great degree. Some of the major changes, the top three lines of this chart are the salaries, benefits, and pension obligations that we have for our existing staff. Did I hit something wrong? No? Okay. Like you, we're seeing our healthcare costs escalate again after several years of being somewhat flat, and we all know the pension obligations that the school districts and intermediate units have. If you go down the list, I think they're pretty self-explanatory. You see something called Transfer to Building Improvement Fund. Dr. Fury mentioned the two major projects we have, and this is one of the areas we're seeing a budget impacts. We have to pay, we have to draw from our capital reserve fund to pay for some aspects of these projects. Moving on to the occupational education budget, this is the budget that supports the operation of our 3 technical college high school campuses across the county. In the last 2 decades, the school districts and the county, the intermediate unit, we have really done we have invested heavily in our career and technology programs, and it's quite a success story. If you look at this chart, in 2012-13, we have about 1,000 more students across all 3 campuses than we had a decade or so ago. So our, some cases are, and it's across all 3 campuses. Our Downingtown campus has over 1,200 students in career and technology programs. Penix Bridge, again, as well as Pickering, are seeing upward trends in their enrollment. We're experiencing space and other resource challenges as we try to accommodate more students and expand our programs. So it's a very good success story. Some highlights of the next year's proposed budget. The total budget would be approximately $34.6 million. It's about a 3.3% increase over this year's budget. I'll talk about the formula in a second on how the districts fund this program. But if approved, our tuition rate for a half-time program next year at any of our campuses in any of the programs would be about $11,188. Again, just summarizing the significant changes in expenditures, you can see the salary, healthcare, and pension increases. We do have some staffing changes to support some new programs. And we have an increase in debt service. Again, that's related to the expansion projects that we explained earlier. So an overall increase of about $1.1 million or 3.3%. We don't like to raise prices or tuition, but when we have to, our goal is to always keep those at or below the AC1 index. Looking at the historical tuition increases for our career and technology programs, we've been successful in doing that since 2011, 2012. This is a quick snapshot of our overall enrollment and in all 3 campuses. And you can see there's been generally an upward trend in enrollment across the board in all of the school districts. Specific to your school district, this is the formula that determines your cost. The top part of the sheet is the current cost. It's the 3-year average enrollment, 34.03 full-time equivalents, multiplied by the tuition rate for a full-time student, or $733,000. Your enrollment is staying fairly flat, so your increase is relatively minor, about $27,000 for next year. Your students are availing themselves to a wide range of programs, primarily at the Penix Bridge campus. It looks like you have 68 students in various programs for career and technical education. Students at all our campuses can take advantage of dual enrollment opportunities where they're earning college credits while they're still in high school. Nearly 1,000 credits were awarded last year, and we estimate the value of those credits to the families and the students to be almost $500,000 in savings. We have greatly expanded our pre-apprenticeship programs, and we continue to do that. And likewise, very proud of the job fairs and opportunities that our students have to meet with employers across the region. Nearly 2,000 interviews were conducted with our students. Our students are leaving our programs with career opportunities, with good jobs and good opportunities. Moving on to our largest area of the budget, and that's the marketplace services budget, estimated to be almost $260 million next year with 127 different programs. Each of these have prices for services. The average increase would be about 3.8%. Districts are only billed for the services they use. Generally, these are student services, special education, alternative education, but districts are only billed for the services that the students take advantage of. The largest component of the marketplace services is our student services division. Last year, close to $215 million in a wide range of programs. Some of the names are probably very familiar to you. Serving students with some of the most significant needs from ages 3 to age 21. And again, we estimate we served close to 20,000 students last year. And just kind of follow up on some things Dr. Fiore said, just a snapshot of some of our enrollment. Our Child and Career Development Center enrollment is actually, it's higher than what's shown here. It's over 370 students right now. It's highest enrollment ever. Our preschool special education enrollment is at its highest level it's ever been, close to 2,600 students across the county. So obviously those interventions that Dr. Fiore spoke about that these programs provide are very, very critical to the development of the children. In summary, again, you can see the budget proposed at $259.5 million, about a 2.8% increase. And this is where most of our people are. So obviously these numbers in terms of the projected increases in salaries and benefits and other staffing changes are larger here. You can see the debt service component is larger because the bulk of the money is being used for those type of programs in the 2 new campuses. Overall increase of about $7.2 million. Looking at, just by example, the staffing, I've highlighted in blue. These are the staff positions that we see needing for the new Engel campus that's opening up in 2 months for the 25-26 school year, and some of the other staffing components are for grants and expansion of other programs. There's close to 500 different services under the Marketplace Services contracts, each with a unique price. We were able to keep the prices flat for 143 of them. For 214 of them, it was either between 0 and 4%, the Act 1 index, and you can see the rest of the structure there for an overall increase in prices of 3.87%. Again, looking at it over the last decade plus, we've kept our price increases well below the Act 1 index each year. And again, it's a goal that's set by our Intermediate Unit Board of Directors and applies across all divisions. So in summary, you can see the 4 major budget areas for the Intermediate Unit proposed budgets totaling $364 million next year. And this last slide is kind of the consummate eye test, but it's our attempt to kind of demonstrate the programs and services that the school district has availed themselves this year based on current enrollments, service levels, and other factors. $2.8 million, and you can see the projection based on for next year based on the those same enrollments. So again, with that concludes our presentation. We would be available for any questions from the board.
Yeah, I have a question. I don't recall seeing the slide. What's your the BVA enrollment off the top of your head?
2,000,
2,000
roughly
kids.
2,000
And
students.
that's grown steadily.
It actually peaked during COVID, understandably, but it's at its probably its highest non-COVID year level ever. 2,000 kids across the entire Commonwealth.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you, I'm just curious, the collaborative development
I'm hoping we're opening up 3 more programs would be ideal because the welding companies want us to have more students come out of it. It's steady. I mean, Dr. Lever and I talked about it the other week. It's a really nice program. It's also a good model for the county because if you want to cut down on students on travel and maybe you want to have it in your school, we think it's a model. We're doing the same with Oxford. Oxford has a similar program that's going really, really well. So hopefully we're opening up more programs.
and not to belabor a point about us having our own programs, you can see where it becomes a value for us with the tuition rate that students that decide to go down to the CCIU, those that we're able to retain, you know, become a cost avoidance savings for us as a district. George's chagrin.
It's fine, as long as the kids are getting it. I want them all employed. I have an 18-year-old, and I need them out of the house. So I understand the mission we all have out. I say it kiddingly, though. Ms. Faucitor.
I just want to make sure I understood correctly. That Child Career and Development Center, when the Great Valley campus opens, that'll be the third?
That's right. So we'll have 3 different sizes, obviously, but with that Child and Career Development in Great Valley, you'll have the Coatesville campus that has that's the one at the top of the hill. It's more younger kids on that one. And then Fred Esengel will have a smaller population, probably around 55 is what I'd say on that campus. If we can fill it, yeah.
Yeah, those programs, currently, I think we got word, we had somebody on a waiting list. And so there's quite a need for this. There's just not enough seats. So thank you for expanding. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Joe
Thank
and
you.
George, thank you very much.
Have a good night.
And Dr. Schultz is going to kick us off with some student achievement data. Sure to be rousing. Please stay in your seats. Thank you, Dr. Schultz.
This did begin as a 40-slide presentation. It is not. It has been pared down quite a bit. And the purpose here is to provide a very high-level look at our PSSA data and then talk about what are we doing currently. I took Dr. Perry's advice. Looking at all those 40 slides there, we didn't tell a story. It was just me just battering you with data. I think it would be far better just to create some mental Velcro to take a look at the PSSA data that we have, and then be able to, in smaller, whether it be ed committee or coming back at other workshops, to dive in and talk about really all the processes and the systems that we're building to help look at this data and try and improve our student achievement. With that, I have to skip some slides. So we'll be taking a look at PSSA 3 through 8 and PSSA math to start. And looking at this, looking at this data here, you can see it in a couple different ways. You can kind of follow through as a cohort. So if you start in 3rd grade in 2022, and if you track that down diagonally, you can see where those 3rd graders become 4th graders in 2023, and then where those 4th graders become 5th graders in 2024. So you can angle down at a diagonal right, and you can follow a cohort of students. You can also take a look at the data on the right hand side there as a bar graph. Audrey and I were looking at it. We hemmed and hawed quite a bit on bar graph versus line graph. It was a very thrilling discussion that I'm sure you all missed. But we felt that this was probably the best way for you to visualize and to see our data. And all this data here is based on students that are proficient and advanced, looking at those students there. So across the board, you can kind of see some dips, you can kind of see some valleys, you can see some growth, you can see some challenges. All of this data has been collected before CKLA and Amplify. CKLA and Amplify are not a magic bullet, but they are a standards aligned system that we do think has a lot of vertical integration going from K to 8. I know our ed committee members, they saw a really awesome presentation from the middle school ELA teachers, just what they're seeing, what they're using. We're seeing already just some growth with our younger students, and that will all build. When you're starting out a program, the kindergartners they have the most value to it because they're beginning that program right away. A 5th grade student has missed out on all of that vertical integration, so it's really difficult, and our teachers have been working incredibly hard to try and fill those gaps and find that meaningful learning for our students. Math, you can see you can do the same thing. You can follow on that diagonal line, and I will be very glad and hopeful and excited to talk to you about what we're doing in math, and I will continue to talk about that in our ed committee meeting. I'm very excited. But you'll see, and math builds, right? So we see some strength in the beginning grades, the younger grades, and you can see that it kind of tapers towards our upper grades. And that really kind of speaks to how math builds and where we want students to have understanding. One thing we've been working on and we'll really continue to work on are the power standard. I call them the power standards, but they're actually really called the major works. And those are those standards that really on grade level want to be mastered for students. When we look through the standards, and we'll be doing some professional development moving forward the next couple of years, we get to see what standards are to be exposed, what standards are supposed to be mastered. And when we look through, we can see that there are, I call them as, again, the power standards that we want for students. We had a great meeting with 1st and 2nd grade, Ms. Grice and I, talking about Think Mathematics. And in first grade, geometry is just a very tiny, tiny little section of our standards. And some of our teachers were aghast that we're not going to do geometry, we're not going to do geometry. It's an additional, it's not a major work. And so what we really want to be focusing on is the number sense and spending all the time that we can in first and second grade on number sense, so that when a student can leave the PLC and have a really strong understanding of what the number 25 really is, then as they move forward, they understand what 25 hundredths mean and what 25% means. But if we don't have a clear, true understanding of what that number is coming out of the PLC, then we can't move on. We can't get that build. So that's what we're working on. It will take some time, but we're putting those structures in place, and very excited to have the middle school model in place that I think will really show some benefits for our students as well. And one other piece that I'm going to preview here is, this is a sample of a map growth data. We want to come back and really take everybody through map growth, M-class, Acadians, Dibbles, all the data that we collect on students, and how we take that data and turn it into our MTSS groups, whether that be Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, and explain, what those are. What is Tier 1? What is Tier 2? What is Tier 3? What happens in those tiers? Who gets those tiers? What do they do when they're in there? Why are they there? How do they exit out and progress through? That is a much, much longer discussion than would be for tonight. But this is to kind of set that mental Velcro, because the map growth data is a different type of data. And Dr. Lever has taught us that when you rely on one piece of data, then it's more failed than when you can look at a bunch of other pieces of data. And so map growth is a type of data where we get to see where our students are based on normative data, based on all other kids across the country. And one thing we've been working on, and I had the fortunate, Krista kind of gave me an assignment not too long ago to work with first and second grade math teachers to take a look at our quadrants, right? And we want teachers to be able to see our kids that are growing and achieving, and looking at the students on where they are. Those that are growing quickly and are achieving, then how do we keep pushing them? Those that are growing really fast but aren't achieving quite so much, how do we keep that fire burning for those students? And really it comes down to teachers coming together and being able to look at specific students, look at their data, look at what they see in the classroom, and then be able to match instructional strategies to help those students. And then finally, this is the what are we doing? So these are all the things that we have going on right now. We have our Amplify CKLA. This is year 1 of implementation. We have Avon Grove coming to us tomorrow to visit and see our middle school Amplify, because they're about to adopt it next year, and their curriculum director wants to see it in our district. Garnet Valley School District, where I came from, where I taught in a previous life, they're coming to visit us in the end of March and early April. They want to see how we're and how we implemented Amplify in CKLA. Open Syed, the science teachers, the middle school science teachers, came to Ed Committee a couple weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago now, and talked about just the storylines that are being drawn out for students. Mystery Science is an elementary science program that builds on that phenomenon and builds on that story for students. Working with Nick Kluge with Lego Education to bring in Lego for the 3, 4, 5 to really provide some fun and a lot of the steel standards, the technology and the engineering. And then super important to me, and anybody who's been in a Ed Committee meeting lately will hear a ton of me talking about the concrete, representational, and abstract, and how we're building that with our math workshop in our math classes, and how we're looking at right now our Tier 1 resource, and very excited to bring a recommendation in May based on all the teacher feedback and the pilots that we've been doing. So the story is we have our data, but really these are all the things that we're working towards to try and help our kids grow and build the system that we need to help our kids grow. So if there's any questions you have for me.
So you're gonna come back. We're gonna revisit some of these elements, kind of isolating them and doing a deeper dive.
Yeah.
In future meetings as well.
It didn't seem fair to do a 90-minute presentation breaking down absolutely everything. I think it's far better to have smaller pieces that we can really take you through and show you the processes that we have.
Thank you, Dr. Schultz.
Thank you.
I do have a question for you. I just thought about it. What do you see as some of the obstacles to success for us?
So I would say our tier one resources, I think we're in a really excellent spot with Amplify and CKLA. The recommendation that we'll bring forward for math, for K to 5 math, I think will make a really big difference. We have an amazing, for math, I'll speak for math because I've been living that world a lot these last couple months. We have amazing teachers and we have an amazing instructional model. Right now, our resource isn't matching the instructional model. So we're asking teachers to bend over backwards to find resources that will fit the model. I think once we marry those two together and provide a lot of the coaching and the professional development that we want to continue to do, I think we'll be able to build those skills in students that we would like.
Dr. Schultz, I don't want to completely put you on the spot, but we had a discussion today. We had a session with our cabinet team with Student Education. Dr. King is with us tonight. And one of the discussions that we had briefly was the necessity of when you implement something, you have to be able to test it and you have to be able to ride your way through the implementation, because the tendency is to lose heart and then move to something else before you've had a chance. So you want to talk just a little bit about that and what we're doing to support teachers and how we're checking how we're doing.
Sure. So I'll use Amplify as the background to this. I think I came to the board, or Dr. Octorara and I came to the board. We talked about how we were buying the Cadillac Professional Development Plan. From my background in technology, the rule of thumb is whatever you're spending on technology, half is on the hardware, the other half is on the training. Because without the proper training or development, then the hardware it won't be there. So that's really just it's never enough. You can't support enough when you're implementing new curriculum or instructional strategies. You have to constantly check in. You have to constantly see where teachers are, understand what they need to be successful. And everyone's different. Just like we differentiate for our students, we want to differentiate for the adults as well.
Sorry. Is STEM Scope something that's currently being used in math or that's upcoming, or is that just to give an example of the CRA model?
The picture on the
What is STEM Scopes?
that was just I just pulled a picture because I wanted a quick way to show CRA.
And CRA is what will be coming with some of what's going to be presented
So it's
with math?
built in on the program,
Which
so-
program?
both of them. So
Tang
both are
and-
Tang and Think Mathematics are
Okay.
both based on concrete, representational, and abstract. And so in a math workshop model, you want to be able to allow students to differentiate in their progression of their understanding. So too often we race to the algorithm. And I think I've said this before, but it's my favorite example is prior, when you didn't understand something, the teacher would just say it slower and louder. And then you would do a million algorithms, but you never understood why the math worked. But when you can use CRA and you can break things down to understanding the concepts, using those hands-on piece, and then progress from the hands-on to the representational to that abstract algorithm. We want kids to get to the algorithm, but some kids need to progress through to the algorithm.
Yeah, I understand. Sorry, I was just trying to get a handle on if the things that are on there are what are happening currently or upcoming.
So they are happening currently, but that's the heavy lift because the current resource doesn't match with what's happening currently.
And the
So
current resource is Math Workshop? When
no,
you say-
the current resource is Go Math.
Okay,
The instructional model is Math Workshop.
gotcha. Thank you.
And I think I'll be here on the 24th to talk about Think Mathematics. I'm really excited to share with you.
So I want to take a moment to introduce you to Dr. Carlita King. She is our our coach from Studer Education. So this is her second time, third time here? Third time that she's been on campus. She was with us today. We scheduled our session today so she could be here tonight. And so I thought it would be a good idea for you to meet her, and she's going to talk a little bit about the work we've been doing. And then I'm going to give you some of the an overview of the survey results from the student experience, parent experience, employee experience survey that we gave right at the turn of the year. So, Dr. King.
All right, good evening. And so, as Dr. Lever said, I am Carlita King, Dr. Carlita King. I want to make sure I mash the right button. Is that the right one? Okay. Quickly, and this is not about me, but we're always told to introduce ourselves. So I'm bringing you greetings from South Carolina. I happen to be a coach with Studer Education, and what we do is we are a consultant group with K, and we're going to say through 20, which is even higher ed. So that's K through 12 and universities, colleges and universities. We work with the leadership of educational institutions so that we are primarily working on developing three things: people, culture, and we also develop strategies with the people in the building. So what we do is we want to focus on making sure that we build positive cultures so that people can thrive in those buildings. And so we develop the people. So with that said, just a little bit about me, so you'll know why I'm working with Dr. Lever. I was fortunate to have a career in public education, K-12, for 30 years. And I retired, and I wanted to continue to work. I love leadership. And so this is where my heart is, working with leadership and seeing school districts thrive and building their systems. And that's what this is all about. So just a little bit about me. I'm going to give you a quick overview, and I'm not going to be long. I know you've been here, and you're probably ready to go, and you don't want to hear me talk. So I'm going to go ahead and just let you know, though, what we're doing in a nutshell, and that I do believe, and I think he does too, and I think the executive leadership believes that we're starting to see it make a difference in what we're doing. So the overview for what we're doing, or what I'm going to tell you about tonight, is I'm going to tell you what the purpose of Studer is, what our goal is ultimately also, exactly how do we work with educational systems. At the end of the day, how does Studer support the leaders in the buildings, and then who are the people who are actually working with them, so the coaches, what are the contracted services that we offer, and what contracted services your district has, and then what does the scope of work look like, and what do we expect to yield in the very end. So that's an overview of what we'll talk about. Basically, Studer, again, as I said before, is a consultant group that works with just any educational institution, K through 20. And our goal, and I love what this says up here, we work to create great places to work, learn, and succeed. That's it. We want to make sure we're not selling a product. We're not selling any framework. We're not selling anything. We are working with the leaders in the districts to help them use the skills that they have to build sustainable systems, okay? That's what we do. And how do we do this? We focus on culture again, strategic direction and execution, continuous improvement, and accountability. The next one is where we talk about our framework. Now, Studer does have a framework, and it is evidence-based, but it is based off of, and I'm gonna sum this up, and it's gonna be very informal, but it is what it is. All of those things that are listed around that circle are means of dealing with people. How do we interact with each other? How do we have conversations with each other? How do we continue to motivate each other? What are the key things that then influence the systems and the people that are in the systems? How do we grow the people within the systems so that they yield the positive results? And so that circle represents basically what we call organizational excellence. How do we develop organizational excellence? Again, if you look at that little arrow-like shape there, it has 3 major components in it that we continue to focus on, and I'm going to say it over and over. We focus on the people, leadership, we focus on culture, and we focus on the strategy, okay? So the next piece is, what do we exactly do with your coaches or with your leaders? If you pay attention, I said this before, we talk about working with people and having the good conversations. So we support the teams to build sustainable, continuous improvement and help districts alleviate, and that is major up there, initiative fatigue. We don't want to keep doing new things. You keep trying new things, and then this is over and over, the same system again. We want to make sure that you have solid best practices in place and that they will sustain the test of time and all of the headaches and everything that come from external factors, even internal factors. So when we develop positive systems together, we want to know, again, at the end of time, test of time, you can test them, try them with anything. They will be sustainable because they work, because they're just solid with your people. And when we say your people, we're talking about the teachers, the leaders, and the children in our district. Everybody is not the same in every district. So we can't just say, here's a perfect cookie cutter solution. We literally get data, we get information, we talk about this, we test it to see what strategies are working positively for your district, and then we make them solid. The last thing on there, you see it says our coaches help leaders develop 4 data-focused conversations. We talk about recognize and reward, and that's when we realize we gotta start talking about the good things and not always the bad things, because we're gonna have problems to solve all the time, but science and research says that anything that you want to replicate, give it praise. So if you give the positive praise, you'll see more positive. And so we want to make sure that we continue to identify the bright spots and give it praise. We look at where we identify our gaps, our performance gaps, and then we create strategies there to figure out how we're going to close them. Where you see the repeat, I just said that basically, repeat anything that you know is working. If it's going to be a solid system that's already working, let's not change it. Keep working it. And the last thing is we have got to make sure that we give feedback. So those are the 4 major conversations that we try to develop in a system, because if you have those conversations, they will continue to improve your system. Prime example, doctors have conversations all the time about their patients. They get together and collaborate, and they figure out what's working, and they keep it going. We've got to do the same thing in education. The next slide up here is one that I tweaked, and we kind of laugh because Studer might get me on this one. That's not the initial diagram, but I like the way this looks. It's not. I put 2 of them together. So the first one is the one with the little arrows on top. It is major in the process, and the arrows represent the people. If you pay attention at the back of the diagram, the arrows are going all different ways. That's when we don't have structure, and then you don't yield your results. But when we get the people to line up and go in the same direction, you start to yield your results. And if you notice that you've got an arrow, that's being drawn around the arrows, that's your structures and your processes. Everybody is then funneled to go the same direction. That last diagram with the arrows going up front represents the place where you start to see change and improvement. So we've got to get everybody on the same page, lined up with their behaviors, going in the same direction if we expect to see those type of improvements. The bottom part talks about that process that I just told you about. At the very back, we've got to say what direction we're going in, develop our leadership, and the key to that purple section where you see the lines start to go in the same direction, it says always actions. That doesn't mean sometimes. What actions do we have to put in place for our leaders to do always, and make sure that that is a consistent thing that we repeat, and then you continue to move on because we call it's a flywheel. When we start to get momentum, a flywheel goes faster. You'll see all of your people move in the same direction, and you'll get your results. That's when you get your breakthrough. All right, so our coaches, you'll see some of them up there. There are about 20 coaches. That's some of us right there. And our founder is right in the middle, and she's tough. She's good. Her name is Janet Pilcher, Dr. Janet Pilcher. She is the founder of this organization, and she's the one that began this research. We have all done improvement science research. We continue to do it with you. And so there are about 20 of us that go across the country to work with districts and universities. If you see, we're all former superintendents, executive leaders, and we're proud of that. We have about 600 years worth of work that we can share with you. So with that said, the contracted services that we offer, leadership development, strategic planning, engagement surveys, and then continuous improvement coaching. We have contracted 3 of those services here. All right. Now, the scope of work that we currently do here is listed up there, and I think I would say that I'm pretty proud of it. We talked about it today. Starting in October until February at least, we have done quite a bit. We've done the initial planning, began to work on leadership development, and I'm gonna say leadership development that we've talked about is primarily executive leadership. So that is the executive leadership team. Our next move will be to work with building leaders. But we've got to get everybody in executive leadership on the same page and going in the same direction like we were just talking about, so then we can yield the results in the buildings. We then began to talk about what district scorecard would look like and how we would develop it, and what type of surveys we wanted to get out to our stakeholders, because what we want to know is what is the experience that our stakeholders are having when they get in this district. Now, when we get that information, I have to remind myself and I have to remind Dr. Lever and the leaders in this district that when we look at the data from the surveys, the first thing that we're always prone to do is find the problems. That's not gonna work. What we have to do is change that lens and ask ourselves, what is the experience of those people? What is the experience of the students? What is the experience of the people there, working in the buildings? What is the experience of the parents? Then the goal is, once we identify what the experience is, our goal is to make that experience better. Not find the problems and point fingers. And that's one of the things that we in public education get caught in all the time. That holds us back more than anything. Once we identify how to identify what the experience is for these individuals and figure out how, as leaders, we can be a variable to make it better, it will get better. So that's what we do there. We're now in the area where February, March, we have given the surveys, got the results. Now it's time to figure out what that experience is. How do we then take our leaders, get them in place, line them, and I don't want to say line them up like the arrows, but line them up so that behaviors go the same direction so that you can yield positive results. That's where we are now. We'll go into April and May. We'll talk about what it looks like to use the scorecard to see how much progress we're making or not, and what we need to do to realign it. And then we've gotten into the talking about our rounding conversations. And that was an eye-opener today. It was a good conversation. We'll get to June and July, and I think if you look at the end of that scope of work, by June and July, we will have attacked at least 8 concepts for leadership development. If we can get the leaders to go in the right direction. I had a mentor, and I'm going to always quote her as long as I'm living. She was my first principal, actually hired me as a teacher. And believe it or not, she's a family friend. We still go to, my father, my family, my parents, we go to Thanksgiving Day dinner with them every year. But she said, and she would always say this, so goes the head, the tail shall follow. Wherever the head's gonna go, everything else is gonna follow. So if the head is dysfunctional, everything else will be dysfunctional too. If the head is going in the right direction, everything else will go in the right direction. So we talked a lot about the fact that we've got to make sure that our head is going and looking in the right direction so that everybody else, leadership-wise, will follow. And so the last part here is once this scope of work is complete, what do we hope we achieve? Those 5 concepts up there. We want to have strategic thinking. We want to make sure that we have engaged the work environment so that our stakeholders are engaged in it. We want to align the priorities and make sure that everybody has the priorities aligned. So if the district has a certain set of goals, then all of the other schools or departments should have goals that are aligned to it. We should have clear communication, and we got to talk about that because we laugh about what communication to me might mean something different to him. We've got to make sure that we have that clear, and then we've got to, if we do all of that, then we will have developed a means of system-wide direction. So that's what student education does. We want to make it, I guess, clear that, because when I first got involved in this, I really didn't understand that it's not a product, it's not a framework. It is a way of developing the leaders to become those doctors that they are. They are going to be the ones that look at a problem, diagnose it, and then prescribe the right intervention to make sure that everybody's going in the same direction. So that's why we're here. And if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
I'm sitting here, I'm trying to think how to ask you this. I was looking for specific lessons or communication skills that you develop between the administration, how they deal with either conflict resolutions. Is there any magic bullet where you guys have a procedure in place that facilitates that type of?
So we don't have a magic bullet, but we do coach all that you just said. So where there are conflicts, we talk about how do we deal with conflicts. We talk about the fact that as leaders, we have to take the information in and literally mold it, talk to people to figure out how we're going to make it work. But we've got to look at all the variables. There's no one answer for this because, and I'm going to give you a prime example. I was an assistant superintendent. He told me I was going to meet with the board today, right? I've met with boards before. It's nothing new, and I've seen boards. I didn't expect this many people on this board, okay? And that's a difference already. The boards that I worked with didn't have this many people on them. And so when I walked in, so that would be a variable that I'd have to consider. How it's, some boards you don't present certain ways. I've never presented with my superintendent sitting beside me. The dynamics are different. And so you look at, again, all of the variables because those things are factors that would yield then how do I move this way or that way. So I've got to know, in other words, he has to know his stakeholders to know if this pressure that you put here is too much or not. And that's, he has to make good decisions based on the needs of his people. And so it's coaching him to be literally the doctor to say, this patient can't take this patient can take that. Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you.
Wait, don't go away yet.
Oh.
We're not quite done yet. We have one more. So, thank you, Joey. So what we've been doing, we're really looking at how do we develop habits that are going to help us to continually deal with whatever happens in our organization. So when I look at our mission statement, to foster a culture of high expectations, the bottom line for us in this work is we have to have high expectations for ourselves as leaders. So what does that mean? It means you have to be willing to ask for feedback, and then you have to be willing to take action based on the feedback that you get. It's about lifelong learning. We will never stop as educators learning. And we have to continue to grow, even though we've got, terminal degrees and you're never fully done. And if we want our students to do that, we have to model that. And then positively contributing to communities. That's probably the weakest of the three in our mission for this particular instance, because our contribution is to get our kids to a different place. Our contribution is to try to get, learning to a new place. And so one of the things that was attractive about Studer was not only that they had surveys, everybody has surveys, but what Studer has done very artfully throughout the year is work with us on what do you do with those? How does this become something that you take and you collect information from faculty, staff, parents, and students, and then how does that actually impact what you say you're doing in your goals? And so I want to show you some of it's not long. I've distilled it down to three points of strength and then 3 opportunities for each one. So it's 9 points. When we give the surveys, we ask people, it's a Likert scale. Strongly agree, neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree. And we had 729 students took the surveys, and 533 parents and 161 employees. In the student responses, what we have, and what I'm showing, and I'll be writing to the community about this in my March update, is areas of relative strength and then opportunities. And our areas of relative strength, and this is across all of our students. So this is all of the students combined. And they're ranked by their highest choice. The thing that our students said above all else was they enjoy specials and electives. That's something that they really like. Second thing, interesting, my belief, I believe my learning is important at my school. That's an amazing statement for kids to say that's the thing that they rate second highest. And then the third one is really heartwarming for me. I feel my family is treated nicely or with respect at my school. And so these surveys are about what are you experiencing when you're here? What is your experience when you come to school? I enjoy my specials and my electives. I think my learning is important here. And man, people treat us well when we walk in. But our opportunities, look at those. I think my school is clean. Our schools are not dirty. Custodians, you do a fantastic job. Our night staff does a fantastic job. I think with some student focus groups, we could probably get an idea of what are you trying to tell us? I think it's the dated nature of some of our buildings, our bathrooms, and that's my guess. But that's the one that they rated the lowest. And so we talk a lot about facilities, but when you ask kids, it's top of mind to them where they go to school. The second one was I like going to my school each day. That's a negative. That's the second lowest. And so I think that probably across America, if you ask kids if they like going to school, most kids will say, oh, maybe not if I had a choice to do something else. But for us, we have to dig into that. What are they experiencing that they're telling us that? And what do we do about that? And then this is the one that kind of breaks my heart. Because on one hand, they're telling us that my family is treated nicely and with respect at my school. But this other one, I feel students are nice or show respect to each other at my school. Student-on-student relationships, they're telling us that they could be better. And so these are things that now these fit into our matrix on what are we doing with kids. What are the things that we need to focus on? Now, there's other things that when we survey in the future, there's other things that are going to pop to the top. And then that just becomes, our point of focus as we go forward. So the parent and caregiver responses. This is, again, the areas of strength. I'm treated with respect at this school. That's our parents telling us that when they come and they interact, that's the highest thing that they give us. That's the highest thing they rate. I believe my child has the necessary classroom supplies and equipment for effective learning. That's, if you want to talk about one that directly relates to the work that you do as a board, that's one right there. We are equipping our classrooms, we are equipping the student learning experience with what they need. And then I feel comfortable approaching school administration. So parents who feel that they can come and they can talk to an administrator in our district, and that is the third highest rating that they get. So kudos to our team who invites these conversations. But we get to the opportunities. I receive positive phone calls, emails, or notes about my child from school. We're back to the thing that we've been talking about and we've been studying, which is communication. Are we communicating in a timely manner? Are we communicating enough with families? I regularly receive feedback from school on how well my child is learning. One of our principals, I'll just say this because parents that are watching online, if you see a difference in the spring, you know how we do our conferences? They're by the most needy students get invitations. Students who are struggling the most. And if you're doing fine, you don't get an invitation. It's open for you to come, but what message are we sending if that's the way we do it? And I think they're kind of telling us in this second point. I believe school rules are enforced consistently in this school. Is that execution or is that lack of communication? So these are all of the things that we will then take and we will build into our goals. And then employee responses. I believe that my work positively impacts those we serve. We've talked about all year, we've talked about collective efficacy, a teacher's belief that they can make a difference. That tells us our teachers believe that they make a difference because it's the thing that when you ask them, the thing they rank the highest. I believe that leaders in my immediate work environment are genuinely concerned for my welfare. So the people that are most immediately overseeing our teachers feel a high degree of support from them. I have clear understanding of my expectations as an employee. So they feel like they know what they're supposed to do. But our opportunities, I believe organizational level information is communicated in a timely manner across the organization. That's the lowest. We don't do a good job of communicating all of the things that we do. Now, I would like to see after realignment, we're not going to, we'll do it in the fall, but I'd like to see what teachers would say because we're getting good feedback on the realignment. But because these types of things are points of emphasis for us. I feel that organizational level resources are allocated to maximize effectiveness across the organization. Not all teachers feel that they have access to the same level of resources. I see progress being made to create a culture of success for employees across the organization. So they feel really good about the leaders that they're working with, but they don't see organizationally that we are really creating a culture where they can be successful. And so that's something that we really, as leaders, we need to dig into that, and we need to start to action plan around that. So we had some common themes around school environment and safety, student and school culture, communication and feedback, and organizational effectiveness. We have this is the scorecard that Carlita was talking about. And we have two of these. We have one that is aligned for our leadership behaviors, and then we have one that's for goals. And so this is actually still in the development stages because we're taking the feedback that we got from surveys, and this actually helps us to guide what it is we're going to be looking at and the behaviors. So that's an update on where we are. We continue to work the survey. We're going to write to parents and staff this month. And then we're building those action steps in immediately, but our goals will really probably be based on where we are next year because that's the time that we're going to survey. Any questions about Studer or surveys or where we are? Yes.
I guess be more for King. The opportunities that we just saw for improvement, did any of them say shock you, or you're saying, I've seen that before, I know exactly how we're tackling it?
So many of them are very common. Many of them are very common, as he said, like with students wanting to come to school. We know that, and I can't blame it all on COVID, just time. We have to work, I see it everywhere. We've got to work with children on how to get along. We gotta work with people how to get along, okay? And that's major. And with all due respect, I'm gonna say something. So goes the head, tail shall follow. They follow what they see, okay? So we have to figure out as adults how we line our behaviors up to model that so that we can do that. So there are things that we're gonna see with the opportunities that are very common, but we as school districts are charged with making that experience better. So some areas you'll see where, and I'm gonna give you an example, their lowest might have been the same thing, but it was 20%. His lowest might have been 50%. Well, he's got a higher number of kids who agree that they have a good experience, but that's just happened to be his lowest. They're similar all across this nation, but those are the things that we know as schools that we have to work on if kids are going to thrive and do well in school. So there are lots of common opportunities, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. King, for coming and joining us. She will be back in May, back on site, and in between, we do virtual meetings where we set goals and talk about things that we're accomplishing. So thank you very much for being
And
here.
thank you all for having me.
Really, yeah, there's not a long presentation on summer programs. I just put it in here so that we could talk about it. I don't know the complete history of summer programs at Octorara. I know that we've been doing them for many, many years, a couple decades. And what happened was there was an expansion during the COVID years where the federal government mandated that we had to spend certain percentages of federal money on learning loss. And so there were lots of ways to do that. Sometimes it came across in computer programming and purchasing of computers and infrastructure, but it also was in programs like summer programs. And so those programs grew. Some of them grew, particularly probably the literacy one during the summers because we had access and because we could do it and not charge families. My understanding is there was a time that we charged in the past, but last year we expended about $500,000 on summer programs. And so the struggle has been without any federal dollars to do that. It comes back to the reserves that we have as a district, and but we have an expenditure that's higher than it ever was. Some of these are mandated. So ESY, Extended School Year, is mandated. We have to do that one by law. That's a program that's already been approved by the board. But we have to make this decision pretty quick as to what it is we are going to do with summer programs. And is it something where we will just take the higher amount of money that we ended up spending with federal dollars, and we just take that from, we have some money budgeted for that. One of the hard things is there's some data to suggest that what we were doing was effective, but not to the level that I can say absolutely 100% this is a no-brainer to do. So I was, and perhaps nobody wants to comment on this, we're grappling with this as an administration, and we will have to come back with a recommendation probably for next week so that we can get programs moving. And so I was just curious if anybody wanted to weigh in on that one way or another.
Be willing, I think, state some of the obvious to speak for. I guess we got to figure out, is it really benefiting the students, or are we just doing a 2-week camp that's free and the parents are able to drop the kids off for a while and get a 2-week break. Not to sound mean or anything like that, but are we just funding a 2-week camp for free, or are the kids actually gaining knowledge and getting a head start from it? I mean, that's basically, if it's really stepping up to getting them ready for the next year, I'm all for it, but if it's just being used as like Bible school or whatever those types are, where just 2 weeks you drop the kids off and, you know.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Tao.
Thank you. To your point, Mr. Zimmerman, the purpose of the summer literacy and math program historically was to support students who were struggling, to give them that additional summer instruction in reading and math, and also provide some other activities to make it a little less like school and a little more enjoyable. Originally, I was co-directing the camp with Lisa Welsh when we were still having people pay for it. And originally, we did a lot of work to target the families of the students who we thought would benefit the most from it. And for students who whose families were economically disadvantaged, we had scholarships and things like that to make it affordable. But overall, the intent was to alleviate that summer slide and learning loss, and also to provide for the students that were struggling throughout the year an additional time to continue with that momentum. We had aligned our instructional program to what they were getting through the year. We had very small groups for reading that were homogeneously grouped. We used data to group the kids. And back when we were doing it, there was just literacy, there was math, they also had science, we did some music things with them, you know, PE, and all of those things. So that's, it was instructional in nature, and those were the purposes for which it was originally designed, and what we had done for many years. Over the last several years, there was a little bit of drift from those original intentions, but it was still academically focused as a priority.
That's what I was kind of wondering. Has it gotten too big? You know what I mean? Because was it before, were you invited or not? I couldn't remember.
We would allow anybody who wanted to pay to come.
Right.
However, we would gather teachers that were going to work the summer program, and as co-directors, we would spend several evenings reaching out by phone to those families, inviting them. We would work with teachers. We had a system in place for teachers to send invitations to the kids that they thought would benefit the most.
Yeah, okay, because that's what I thought I remembered being, a more intimate, structured, more like focused on those kids that need it and stuff. And it sort of seemed to, maybe it's just me driving past it every now and then, just seemed like it got away from that.
It was well attended back
Yeah.
when families were still paying for it. If my memory serves me correctly, but don't quote me on this, I think I remember years where we had about 200 students. So yeah, it was well attended, but it also served the purpose that you described earlier.
So just to clarify, this is a summer program to help the kids with literacy and programs and give them a learning environment that may not be as much like school, and it's run by the teachers. Who comes and teaches?
We would advertise just like we would through HR for our openings. So we would hire teachers, we would hire instructional assistants, and they would teach. Mm-hmm.
And how many? Is it just depends on the numbers who sign
It
up?
depended on the number of students.
Okay.
Mhm.
What I'm really driving at is that number program is extremely high. Like, is that what it takes to really get some people in, just to do some extra teaching? The
Well, we were also
500,000?
providing transportation,
Okay,
so that drove the cost up significantly.
okay.
So we weren't busing as we would during the regular school year, but we provided community hubs for busing in the summer.
Can I ask an unrelated to academic potential, as it relates to what sounds like we're steamrolling toward some sort of reshuffling of our buildings? How does this impact the reality of the campus and what could be?
Adding to the
Yeah.
what Scott was talking about, the headaches of realignment.
Yeah, I'm just trying to envision if we have a stripped down program this year, and sort of just obviously do the ones that we're required to do, it might give us an opportunity to reevaluate systemically how we want to compare the two and performance, as well as alleviate some of the stressors that are sure to be on the campus for that period. I mean, it's a 6 week, six week, right? Correct? 5 week thing, right smack dab in the middle.
I think our early discussions, we would have to run it out of the PLC. Krista, yeah? Yes, we would have to run it out of the PLC, which it's been out of iOS, at least in most recent memory. My concern is our tier 2 and tier 3 academic kids. Those are the ones that, are the ones that I worry about the most in the summer. And so that's the hard part is how can we put a rigorous program in that will support them as much as you can in 5 weeks and have them want to come and give up their summer. I mean, I think that's what Dr. Tao was talking about was, they have to also want to be here. So I think we're going to have to sharpen some pencils and come back with a little more data with a justification for whatever it is we're recommending in the coming week.
Yeah, my thought around the summer program is, I think when you look at the data that we were presented tonight about where our students are scoring, I think we need to find ways to help them, right? And so whatever that looks like I don't want to run a summer program just to run a summer program, but at the same time, we need to find ways as a district to get more than 9% of our 8th graders proficient or advanced in math, right? So, I think that's something that we should focus on. And then I know we can't control what's communicated outside of the district, but the YMCA had already communicated that Octorara is not doing a summer program. So if you were only planning on signing up for half a day, you should sign up for a full day, right? So, that's kind of terrible communication that's out in the community right now, and we're having this conversation now. I don't know where that came from, right? But, and again, we can't concern ourselves with what's said outside, but somehow, some way, somebody got a message that we weren't doing it. I don't know why or how, but
I don't know that they got a message as much as they created a message, because a simple phone call, but that doesn't happen.
yeah, and that
That's
could
okay.
be a way to, because they want to get people in their programs, and so I'm not throwing shade at anybody. I'm just saying, right? I don't, but that's the kind of stuff that we need to do a better job of communication, right? And so maybe we should have had this conversation a month ago, or potentially.
How many kids are tier 2, tier 3? How many kids are we talking about in that general number, the worst?
Tier 2, tier 3, rough numbers.
So
Around,
OES for, sorry. So it looks like 4th grade, 36 students receiving tier 2, and 4 students receiving tier 3 for 4th grade. And 3rd grade, 18 students receiving tier 2. This is for ELA, tier 2, and 18 students receiving tier 3. And a little bit inflated for math for 3rd and 4th grade.
So we're less than 100 kids. Are we talking about less than 100 kids for a summer program?
That was for one building.
Yeah, so if you look at my building, for kindergarten, between Tier 2 and Tier 3, we have 44 students. For first grade, we have 60 students, and for second grade, I have 48 students. So it's
Now,
and that's just ELA, not math.
a number has been used for, like, when we do invitations for ESY, it's about 40% accept the invitation. So I don't know if those numbers would hold true. Certainly, it's not every student, but it's some percentage. But I don't have that. I just know ESY typically we get about 40% that are invited that actually come. Okay, thanks. We will we'll dig in a little bit deeper and bring it back next week. Thank you.
You know what else I'd be interested in seeing, I think you hinted at this, some of the data that suggests, that it's beneficial to some degree.
Yeah.
I'd like to see in some of those.
Well, and what would we be doing in the 5 weeks that we could verify,
Yeah.
Growth, during that time?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good discussion. I hate to ask, but are there any more information items?
That was it. We can keep moving.
Okay, we will move on to presentation of agenda items for March 17, 2025, regular monthly public meeting. A, that the Octorara Board of School Directors approve the changes to the Octorara High School Program of Studies for the 2025-2026 school year. You just stop me if you want to chime in. B, that the Octorara Board of School Directors approve the request for unpaid intermittent family medical leave for Ms. Dana Irons effective January 30, 2025 through January 29, 2026. Ms. Irons is a fourth grade teacher at the Octorara Elementary School. C, that the Octorara Board of School Directors accept the resignation of Ms. Andrea Bizignani as secretary to the business manager effective March 21, 2025. D, that the Octorara Board of School Directors accept the resignation of Mr. Scott Whiteside as head girls basketball coach of the Octorara High School effective February 18, 2025. E, that the Octorara Board of School Directors acknowledge the failure to report to work of employee A. F, that the Octorara Board of School Directors accept the withdrawal of Mr. Andre Anderson as an instructional assistant at the Octorara High School. G, that the Octorara Board of School Directors accept the withdrawal of Dylan Brown as food service worker in the Student Education Co-op program. H, that the Octorara Board of School Directors approve Mr. DeAndre Clark as an autistic support teacher at the Octorara Middle School effective March 10, 2025, pending completion of employee-related documents required by law in the district. Mr. Clark's salary will be $58,248 prorated, which is step 17 to max of the bachelor scale. I, that the Octorara Board of School Directors approve Miss Jasmine McKim as an instructional assistant at the Octorara Elementary School, effective date to be determined, pending completion of employee-related documents required by law in the district. Ms. McKim's rate will be $15 per hour for 5.75 hours per day. J, that the Octorara Board of School Directors approve the following supplemental contracts for the 2024-2025 school year. Darren Hodordovich, High School Assistant Track and Field Coach, 6 points at $620 each, $3,720 total. Mark Proke, High School Head Track and Field Coach, 7 points at $620 each, $4,340 total. Mark Tongle, Middle School Assistant Baseball Coach, 3 points, $620 each, $1,860 total. Alexis Steinmetz, OES Yearbook Advisor, prorated, 1.4 points at $620 each, $868 total. Joe Lynch, PLC Music Director, 2 points, $620 each, $1,240 total. K, that the Octorara Board of School Directors approve the following athletic workers for the 2024-2025 school year. Mallory Griffin, Angela Bonanu, Sarah Dansforth, Elizabeth D. Orazio, Dominic London, DeAndre Clark. L, that the Octorara Board of School Directors approve the following change in salary due to graduate credits earned. Amber Lowe, from Masters, $69,985, to Masters plus 15, $75,676, step 16 to max. Anything to add there? No. Next on the agenda is the Education Committee report. Education Committee met on February 24th, 2025, 6 p.m. in the Middle School Hub. Went over 4 main items. First was a presentation by the gifted program teachers. There was one from each intermediate, middle, and high school. Basically, it was a discussion around the number of students in the program and an example. They each ran through examples of activities the students are involved in throughout the year. Next was a presentation by ELA teachers from intermediate and middle school. Dr. Schultz touched on that earlier. A discussion regarding how they are doing an in-depth study of specific subjects. They gave an example where they had a special day where each of the students and some of the teachers dressed up as their favorite characters from different stories being studied. One of the more interesting topics was a discussion, and they showed us some examples of how they're using AI as a scoring method. The software looks for specific information in their responses to prompts. Specifically, they talked about the CER method, where they make a claim, provide evidence, and then give reasoning. And their responses are given a score pretty quickly through AI. Next, had some information presented on our referrals and restorative practices. We received a quick presentation on the positive behavior interventions and support systems that the school has in place. Basically, a discussion around the process and the different techniques that we are providing to support the students. There's a program that was started a few years ago, started 2022, and approximately 20% of our staff have received what they considered to be intensive training on this type of activities. And then each of the building principals reviewed some statistics and trends specific to their building. Last was a presentation by our co-op program director. She gave it the nickname, the Career Lab School to Work, or that's what they're looking to call it. Basically, they are coordinating with local employers to give students work opportunities. I actually had 2 students come in and give a summary of their experience, both of which were very positive. And they're looking to just provide work experience for all students prior to graduation. So they're looking to grow that program. Any comments, questions? Good. Next, we'll move on to the Facility Committee report. Mr. George.
Facilities Committee met earlier in this room at 6 o'clock. We started out with the McClure update. They gave us a bigger picture from 3 years to 10 years out as far as cost and funding to start out. They had a breakdown of the individual schools in 5 phases and potential projects, and they kind of dove into the phase 1 project part of it tonight, which looked at the design of the HVAC in the middle school, and they broke down 3 options: the traditional, a hybrid between geo and traditional, and then full geo, and gave us some options there. They talked about the middle school admin HVAC, where the chiller failed. They're proposing an RTU to put in as a replacement. Also touched on the high school auditorium roof update, which was leaking. They're taking core samples, and we got to look at geothermal locations. They also got into the energy analysis, energy efficiencies in each buildings, and some data on that, and touched on the electrical infrastructure of the middle school, which is very outdated and 59 years old with the building. Lastly, we received an MEP report from them to take home and look over before we meet next. When McClure wrapped up, we jumped into consideration projects, starting out with screening on the softball field for Route 41 to save foul balls from going on 41. We need to send out a bid to be under $22,000 for that right now. We may have to move some games around too, according to ground conditions in the spring. We also spoke about the high school auditorium and that renovation. which includes removing the seats and deep cleaning them, epoxy flooring, new carpeting and paint, changing the LED house lighting, moving the sound booth down to the bottom, and that kind of wrapped up the total bid for all those projects is approximately right now $325,000, but it is not a pressing issue that needs to be done right away. After that, we went to the track resurfacing. We have, the next 2 seasons to make a decision to put some more surfacing on the track. Once again, not an immediate thing, but it's might be better to get it done sooner than later. We were also handed bids for utility vehicles to look over, the high school roof replacement, and the process of taking core samples for more information. Number 6, the realignment task list is on the agenda coming up next for other items and concerns. And then we moved on to the board agenda section, which started out with the middle school vestibule. The flooring needs to be adjusted to pass inspection because of the height of a window. After that, it was the high school library lighting and high school library carpeting that is underway, classroom flooring, and the emergency water line replacement that ruptured under the soccer field by the elementary school. And wrapped up with some other expenses and topics such as playground equipment at the elementary school and asbestos remediation.
Thank you. Moving on, other items or concerns? I'll turn it over to you,
Okay.
Dr. Levy.
Yeah. So the last step in our kind of study of realignment was to have Dr. Tahau and Dr. Perry meet with 5th and 6th grade teachers to talk with them about potentially what are the barriers that we have to moving towards realignment. We didn't anticipate that anything would emerge out of that would be earth-shattering, and that held true. Our teachers, if I were to generalize, their concerns are only around the execution of how do we go about doing this. What does this mean? Can we get into classrooms? We're moving from elementary school where we have cubicles in classrooms to an intermediate school where there's nothing like that. And so those types of logistical questions. A lot of questions around how do we manage the shifting of staff. And we've put together a plan for how we'll do that that's very transparent. We'll release the plan to all of the staff. We have a process that we will work our way through where every employee is treated the same. If they're not sure, if there's a one-to-one, if Brian Norris is a 5th grade ELE teacher and we're just going to assume, poor kids. If Brian Norris is a 5th grade ELE teacher, we're going to assume that Brian wants to stay in 5th grade. And so if when we talk to Brian, he says, yes, I want to stay, then we move him over. But we will have some open positions. And so we have to run a process for how to do that. So the administrative team has been talking through what that looks like. And if the realignment is approved, then we would release that whole thing to the faculty. We've discovered some things that we're going to have to do that aren't really tied to realignment. Our insurance company has told us we have to take down some of the playgrounds that are at the elementary school. So if we're staying in that building, it's probably going to be prudent to put something new up rather than just have nothing. So if we realign, we would be doing that at the intermediate school. When we're looking at the intermediate school and the elementary school, there's also issues with PLC and their playground, and so we need to address those things. So there's some kind of tangential things that emerged, but by and large, most of what the 20 items that were on our list that we generated with that the principals generated really were about the execution and how do we go about doing this. So I would like to open up to hear from the board because after the study that we've done, it's my plan is to recommend that we are going to do this unless I hear something from the board tonight that says, maybe we're not ready for this.
Was originally this was something that was supposed to be done a year later?
Yes, we started with remember when Carlita was saying that I have to know what I'm asking people to do and make sure I'm not, and when we first talked about that, it was actually in a board meeting. You know, one of the concerns, which was a justified concern, is that's a lot for the staff. That's a lot for the staff. And so when we went to the staff initially, we said, look, we're going to figure out how we can get through this next year. But we do think this is probably something to do after 26. Just because, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here. And we can do it. But initially we said, look, we're going to do this after the 26 school year. And the teachers, after I would say about a month we had meetings with staff, and we kind of rolled out what we were going to do and conceptually what it would look like. And then they weren't complaining, but the association came back and said, you know, our membership wants to know why we can't do this earlier. And so I gave my same line of, look, this is going to be really hard. There's a lot of moving parts. It's going to be hard for teachers. And the more we've heard from our staff, they feel like the benefits outweigh the inconvenience and the pain of doing it initially. So yeah, that was my initial reaction to the whole idea was, we can't do this quickly. Principals were angry with me, quite honestly, because we talked about it and they said, why would we have to wait? And I said, because it's too much for the staff. And so this is why we've engaged the staff over the last really 3 months on this question. And then the last series of meetings was to give them an opportunity to tell us, you know, is this really something that we think we can tackle? So yeah.
Can I just follow that up? I mean, as I sit here now, I would be against it. If teachers and administration want it, they got the most headaches with it. So, I mean, that's okay. What I would say after the discussion earlier is with the summer program, I would take that out this summer. One, for the logistics of it that we talked about earlier. And two, now you got $400,000 for paying teachers to move their classrooms, paying companies.
Yep.
Like, you can kind of, but once again, if we approve this in April, I'm looking, you got May, June, and July to do it, because August is a wash.
It's got to be done by July 1.
I mean, right now, I'd be in no. And that doesn't include anything we don't know what's going to happen. But if the teachers and administration want it, I mean, that's their, good for them.
Yes, speaking of, again, I know it's getting late, but what about the sheer logistics of moving classrooms? We're going to have to hire out for that, right? Teachers aren't, the equipment's going to be taken from one room assignment to another, and they'll set their rooms up like they would any summer once, August hits or whatever. So who's doing all that? Is that you contracting out? Who's doing all that? Who's doing all the getting ready for a typical reopening of school in the fall? I mean, how do we have that mapped out?
Well, so yeah, we will have to hire some additional help when it comes to the movement. This is also what happens routinely if we paint in a building. Teachers have to go in, they have to pack everything up, it all gets moved out anyways when we do our deep cleaning. Our task, and this is, Scott's trying to get his head around this, our task is, how do we get things moved so that a teacher, and painted and settled, so that a teacher beginning, our target would be July 1, that they can begin to come in July 1. Now, that not all teachers are going to come in, and they don't have to come in. But there are teachers who spend a lot of time in their classrooms in the summer. And the differences would be air conditioned this year, right, Elena? So no, I think it's achievable. There's going to be some challenges. I think that we probably need to give teachers that are physically moving. I think we're going to have to give them a day to come in and pack things up, and we'll have to pay them to do that. That's probably the thing that is that's an added cost. We do have some savings in the building. I think at the end of the day, we probably have a chance of breaking even. Not if you throw the playground in, but we probably have a chance of breaking in. Yeah, there's logistics there, but I think the sense from the teachers has been, look, because they can't pack up before June 6th. So it's, we have to structure it and move. But I think the sense from the teachers is, look, the transitions is the thing that I hear about most from staff, the elimination of a transition, and then the ability to be into a facility that is just a much better facility that doesn't need the work. And what I've been told, and nobody has, it's not to say there's people who don't think this, but I have only heard from staff that the juice might be worth the squeeze in this instance.
I've been seeing some of I forget which local site it was, and we're worried about staff and administration. There are parents that have real concerns about their kids and their ability to transition through an age group in a building that maybe the parent doesn't feel that their kid's equipped for. And I don't know how you avoid that and make a decision this year or next or whatever, but I just want to make sure that those parents have the opportunity to express that if they feel comfortable in expressing that, and if there's any method of providing some relief or comfort that we think this is going to be good for everybody. I don't know. I've seen some posts on Faceline with some real concerned parents about it.
Yeah, well, this is the work Dr. Perry and his team are working feverishly on, and Dr. Proper as well, is that separation that we've taken 2 years to do, but that's the point of that separation, is that our middle school kids have a true middle school experience. Next week you're going to get a look at the staffing plan, and you'll see in the staffing plan that it's very deliberate what we're attempting to do to support our middle school kids. And that's not just because somebody might have a fear of a sixth grader coming over. It's because this is the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade years is the time that is the greatest physiological change in a child after their first 18 months. And so there's just tremendous things that are going on physically, emotionally, and that's why the middle school model is there. It's been developed so that we can support kids in the best way that we can. And I have great confidence in Dr. Perry and Dr. Proper, who are doing everything they can to kind of separate those buildings and make that experience in the middle school a world-class experience, as Dr. Perry says.
I've been on this board long enough to remember that the experts, doing the air quote thing, said that it was better to have the sixth graders in that lower group, 5, 6, which is why we were there, and that wasn't, relatively speaking, all that long ago. What changed?
I don't know.
I just wonder if it's not an argument of convenience. It changed because we needed to change. It's like, I think like a lot of things in education, I think you could probably find data to support the argument either way.
Yeah. I think that Dennis, you want to talk at all about the 6, 7, 8 model?
Thank you. Sorry about that. The middle school model provides for small learning communities of roughly 75 to 80 students in each grade. So bringing the 6th graders over with the 7th and 8th graders, 6th graders will have their own learning communities, 2 of them. Their lunches will be together. Their electives will be together. As we run an intramural program that we're hoping to run after school, the 6th graders will have those opportunities as well. The difference between the current model that we have now that we're providing for 7th and 8th graders and what we're proposing for the middle school model and then the inclusion of 6th grade is that every child really will be seen. They will have positive relationships and productive relationships with the adults that service them all the time. The students in a learning cohort, so dividing each grade into 2 learning cohorts or 2 learning communities, each respective learning community will have their own or the same social studies, math, science, English, and potentially special education teacher. that they meet with. So students and families will be well serviced. The information flow that was part of the opportunities presented in the earlier presentation should be greatly enhanced by the communication of a group of teachers that are able to send out mass communications about what's occurring for their students on the team. And the separation from the, one of the things we hear about a lot, and it's true now for the 7th and 8th graders, are the, the integration and the interactions they have with high school. The plan for next year will be very, very little, with the exception of the potential for instrumental music and some shared teachers in other areas, but still within the middle school footprint. There really should not be much of or any interaction between middle school students and high school students during the school day here. So I'm not, and you're right there. I mean, sure, there's research on all sides, but the middle school model itself is probably the most researched area and segment of education. And the model is, services students and the needs that they have at this particular age. Is that? Yeah.
One question.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
A question I haven't heard addressed yet is the shift from the way 3rd and 4th grade use iPads for some curriculum use. And there's a pretty big shift that I've seen happen from 4th grade to 5th grade with Chromebooks and just like a Google Classroom-based learning. So I'm curious what that might look like for 3rd through 5th. Like, will things stay as it is for 5th grade, or would 5th grade kind of join 3rd and 4th, or swing the other way? If that's, and it's okay if there's not an answer tonight. That's just something I'm looking for as we make the decision. The other thing would, just as everybody is saying, would be some of the logistics, like if there is an estimate on the moving costs or costs for staff and that kind of thing. That's it.
So I can address the technology question that you had. All students in grades K through 6 now have Chromebooks, so that would just remain the same. They do not take them home. That would remain the same. We need to have some conversation about a learning management system. Currently in grades K to 4, we're using Seesaw. I'm seeing that being used very limitedly in grades 3 and 4. So we'll have to have some conversation about that. If we do make a change, it would be Google Classroom, simply because it's very easy to use, but I don't see it being used in a similar manner, for example, as Schoology is. So not all of the coursework and everything would be online. One of the things that we were trying to balance better now at this age level is the screen time. So we're not prioritizing the screen time over other learning experiences. We're trying to balance that, so we're doing it when it's the most effective. For example, using tools like Boost for reading, that's an adaptive program, Dreambox for math, that's adaptive, and then using some of the Google tools to create products with the information. So that's where we are right now. We still have to have some more conversations about it.
I'll just sort of chime in. I'm going to leave the educational aspects of the educational aspects to the experts in the room to handle those things. But I think from a logistics standpoint, it's going to be the same problems at the end of the school year next year to start the following. So, and if not, maybe even harder because of the conditions of the buildings. I think you just bite the bullet and make it happen. When do you need that answer from us? Like a yes or a no to happen this summer?
Yeah, I think if we don't, there's so many things that have to happen that if we don't make the decision next week, we're effectively making the decision for probably another time.
I said, what happens if we can't find somebody to work? People or companies to help with the move, what that's going to look like. What type
Bring a board member to work day.
Yeah, yeah. You know, those types of things.
I think we can, I'm pretty sure we can, something like that, we could probably find student workers that would be willing to do. I think that's, of all of the challenges, I'm not sure that's the one that's the greatest obstacle for us. We do have some big ones. But I think there's some opportunities that we can explore. Football booster club, send the football team, moving boxes.
I think we've already indirectly put the staff in place to make this happen. I mean, without being so intentional, I'm a go. I think the staff is telling you that, hey, we want this to happen, and I think we listen to our professional staff and we make it happen.
Yeah, I think, like, I agree with how Matt kind of just summed it up. I mean, I think the challenges that we're going to face no matter when we do this, and I think that, I mean, there's, like, if we want to get into what ifs about, we can't do this, we can't do that. I mean, what if we don't do it next year and there's a major malfunction at the elementary school, which is one of the biggest reasons why we're doing this. So, like, we could get into what ifs all day, but, we can't focus on that, in my opinion. So I think that, I mean, I'm a go. I think that if there are parents that have questions or fears about the middle school model, like, I'm sure Dr. Perry would welcome conversations with those parents to help alleviate them and kind of show them exactly what the model looks like. Like, I would encourage all parents that are listening, reach out to the appropriate, principals and, share your concerns and let us help you through it. But I think it's something that needs to be done.
I'm all for it too. I've been all for it for a while. I'm like, let's just get going, get started with it, and just figure things out. And the middle school question stuff, don't want to sound mean, but kind of baffles me. I think every one of us was through that model. Has anyone, I mean, every person in this room probably went 6th, 7th, and 8th, didn't we? I mean, yeah. You didn't make it past 5th grade, you say, or you said no? Yeah, so.
Dr. Lieber? I like the fact that we have it where the staff wants this to happen, and they want it to happen sooner than later. While I understand what Dan's saying, but I think it would be a missed opportunity if we don't help support our staff, especially in something like this.
Given the feedback we just had from Studer for the kids and for the parents, to make sure that communication through this whole entire process, especially if we're going to do it in the next couple of months, will be imperative. Engaging parents, even if they aren't listening online or don't make it to the meetings, we need to somehow figure out how to get them in, get them to back to school, or the sneak peeks and all those sorts of things will be critical. Speaking for someone who has a 5th grader going into 6th grade next year as well. So, but I'm excited for this whole thing.
Okay. Moving on. Visitors' comments in general. Seeing none. Administrator comments or announcements?
I'll make it quick. We have a incoming kindergarten workshop on Wednesday at 6:30. It's the special area showcase. And it's also have a PTO planning meeting for the following year. And Elena's going to talk about Read Across America, which we celebrated last week in the elementary schools.
Yes, we did. We had a great week with Read Across America. We had theme days. My personal favorite was dress like your favorite book character. And we got some great book characters and costumes. So there'll be some pictures on the website and in updates. Across both of our buildings, the teachers invited mystery readers to come in. I want to thank all the parents and family members who came in to be a mystery reader in their students' classroom. We really had a great turnout for that, and it was really nice to see. I especially want to give a shout out to the couple of parents we had at the elementary school who took it a step further and came dressed in accordance with the theme day. So Pajama Day was fun, but it was really fun. The kids got a big kick out of it. We are also having a pro reading bumper sticker contest. There'll be one winner from 3rd grade and one winner from 4th grade. The winner's design will be printed on a magnetic bumper sticker, and all of the students and their families will get one, as well as the staff and faculty. So we're pretty excited about that. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Hi again, everybody. Just briefly, one of the things that we focused on a lot this year in the middle school is the climate. Actually, judging from the results of the survey and students indicating their less than desired goal to come to school each day, right? We want to make it a nice experience for children each day, and so upcoming we have our monthly fun day, which will be like a March Madness themed experience for the middle school students. That'll be next Friday. We've tried to do and have done a fun day each of the months so far of the school year. And then we've also recently just booked a trip for each of the grades. Our 7th grade students will be spending a day towards the end of the year at the Franklin Institute, which we're excited about. And our 8th graders will be going to Washington, D.C. to explore some of the nation's capital. So we're excited about those opportunities for the students, builds community for the students, helps to create memories for them, and both are educational as well. So thank you.
This past weekend, junior Bridget Whitfield and sophomore Sawyer Grocke both participated in the PMEA Region 6 Band Festival at North Penn High School. The ensemble was composed of students ranging from 10th to 12th grade, representing 46 different schools from Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery, and Philadelphia counties. Both students earned their seats through an audition at a prior festival. The concert was amazing, and Bridget and Sawyer represented Octorara wonderfully. Students also had an opportunity to audition for the PMEA All-State Festival, and I'm thrilled to report that Sawyer Grocke will represent Octorara on baritone saxophone at the PMEA All-State Concert Band at Kalahari Resort from April 9th through the 12th. So I just want to congratulate Bridget and Sawyer on a obviously brilliant musical year. I'm also really proud to announce that we have our first state medalist in girls wrestling in Octorara history. Freshman Ella Tufert, just amazing, placed 4th in the state of Pennsylvania. And I'll tell you that even the last match was such a real tough match. She lost 1-0, and that was for 3rd. It was just an incredible match. But Ella is like I said, she's a freshman. We're excited to see where her future takes her. But to do that in her freshman year, being 4th in the state, is pretty remarkable. I also want to recognize Jolie Johnson and Taylor Orner, who also represented Octorara at states as qualifiers. If you recall, girls wrestling is one of our newest programs, and we're really happy to say that we think the program's in great shape, and we have some real potential with some younger students that are coming up as well. Last week, we were fortunate enough to have Selena Morrissey from the Karen Foundation give all students in grades 7 through 12 a presentation on the dangers of vaping. We desire to take a more comprehensive approach to vaping prevention, so that was a first step for us. And then finally, I just wanted to share that on March 25th, we're going to be administering QPR training to our freshman class. If you recall, QPR training is suicide prevention training for participants to be able to recognize the warning signs of suicide and question, persuade, and refer people at risk for suicide for help. So lots of good things happening, and I'm sure there's more to share the next time.
I just wanted to welcome DeAndre Clark, who who we've hired as a special ed teacher. DeAndre is a graduate of Octorara, and just one of those. He's somebody who's done a lot of work in our schools through the point, and I think even as an aide, connects with kids, really calming presence. And I love it when we have Octorara success stories where our students come back to impact future generations. So welcome, DeAndre. So thank you.
Next, board comments. Open it up for any board comments.
I just got one quick thing that we didn't get to on the facilities committee. Thank you for the numbers for the facility use. We got that, so I just want to put it on record. Whenever the next good time is, just to have a quick discussion about it. I'd like to see those numbers get lowered and how we can do that. So I just want to get that on record. Maybe that's the next facility committee meeting we discuss, or? Okay. Yeah, I mean, as long as it's, sometime in the near future. Okay, thank you.
Any other board members with comments? Good. Okay. We'll move on to announce the following meetings. Facility committee meeting met earlier this evening, Monday, March 10th, 2025, 6 p.m. in the middle school multipurpose room. We will have an executive session for personnel Monday, March 10th, 2025, after the work session.
Personnel, legal, and security.
For personnel, legal, and security, after the work session, room 102 at the middle school. Policy and Finance Committee meeting next Monday, March 17, 2025, 6 p.m. in the middle school multipurpose room. Next regularly scheduled board meeting, Monday, March 17, 2025, 7 p.m. in the middle school multipurpose room. Education Committee meeting, Monday, March 24, 2025, 6 p.m. in the middle school hub. And with that, we need a motion to adjourn. All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.